So, welcome to the first LGBTQ story hour. Woo! Thank you for coming. And I'm Linda Quinlan, who's going to be your MC tonight.
Yay!
Woo! I know. And over there is my cohort in organizing this event, so Siobhan, come on up. She created the lovely poster for this event, and we'll be collecting donations that will go to help support Rainbow Bridge. Siobhan, sorry, I knew I was gonna do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Also known as Bon Bon.
Bon Bon.
Right. Is a volunteer administrator and chief bottle washer. She hosts a craft club and the Queer Coffee Clutch, which will soon be going on the road around central Vermont. So why don't you tell us what you do over there?
Yeah, we also have the Liberation Library. It's going to be open for library hours from noon till 2 every Saturday, starting December 6th. I got asked to let people know. We have a bunch of social groups and clubs that meet there. We've got a bunch of support groups that support each other. And if anybody would like a tour of the space after this, I'd be happy to take you around and show you around. It's just half a block away. It's not very far at all. Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right.
And it's right across the street, right?
No, it's left.
Left.
Just turn left and half a block down.
Cabaret, is there a
Oh, the cabaret! There's a cabaret coming up!
You're doing a cabaret?
We're doing a cabaret! Yes, on January 31st, we're going to be doing a cabaret. I'm currently looking for talent for it. I am especially seeking comedians. If anybody knows any comedians, I'm not one.
What are you looking at me for?
And I've got some belly dancers that I'm hoping to get on the hook for this. We've got some drag performers. We're looking for musicians. We just want a wide variety of performers. So if you could let the word out, let me get a hold bonbon at rainbowbridgebt.org. Send me an email.
All right.
Thank you so much.
So, let's see where I am on my script. At least I get to have one. Ann Charles, my partner, is the timekeeper over here. So she's gonna be, 5, 4, 3, 2. And our readers tonight will be Erica Reel, Keith Gosland, Chris Rowley, Monica DiGiovanni, and Peter Braunmoster, who is supposed to be here but hasn't come. Oh, you come, Pete? Oh, there you are. I didn't see you come in. And, all right, so we have everybody. So, I thought I would just do people by their first names. And, so that would put you, Erica, up first. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erica. I go by they, them pronouns. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I do Berry Pride. I don't do Berry Pride, but you don't know. So last year, it's very fitting that I'm doing this story. Last year, I was at Christmas time. I had nothing better to do but do a guerrilla shelter with a friend of mine, who was also a militant woman who wanted to help the homeless. And we decided one year we're going to do this in a church at Christmas time. And I had nothing better to do at Christmas. I don't really celebrate Christmas, but I was like, really, we're going to do this in a church? I'm going to burn. But hey, whatever, I'll do this. I was like, my partner is sick. I'm not doing anything for Christmas Eve. I'll help you. And we had everything against us. We had the fire marshals against us. They were like, you can't do a shelter at Christmas. But we're like, it's gonna be 30 below this Christmas. We need to do this. We had no sleep. everybody was against us. The city was against us. The people were against us. Everybody, the police, everybody was against us. But we were gonna do this. We couldn't let people freeze on Christmas Eve. So finally it came. We had food arriving. We had people arriving. We were gonna do this. The only people that were with us that day was one other person, my friend Amanda, who I will say her name, and the pastor of the church. Great, and we had another church that was with us. But I was afraid. I'm an atheist, I'm a queer person, and I was gonna be in a church on Christmas Eve. Okay, I'm also an atheist, did I say that? I am. Okay, just making sure. So, we get all these supplies together, and we were told by the fire marshals, nobody could sleep in this church. It wasn't authorized for people to sleep. So we had to keep people awake. Well, how are we gonna do this? Well, we had this plan in mind. We were gonna keep people awake by, if the fire marshals came, we were gonna be like, surprise, everybody's awake. Okay, we got this. I can be loud, I can be boisterous, we're gonna have a movie marathon all night. I can do this. All right, we had everything against us. But again, it was gonna be 30 below. We weren't gonna let people freeze, especially on Christmas Eve. All right, so we had this thing going. So the pastor, we got these things together, and then we had these two kids walk in. Now I'm 48 years old, and when I say kids, these were kids. They were 16-year-olds, I found out, walked in. And they're like, do you have a place for us to come in? And I'm like, why are 16-year-old kids coming in to a church at 11 o'clock at night? Don't you have homes? Can't you be with your families? I'm gonna call these kids K and K. They look to me like, they look female to me. They were K and K. They were just like, we have no place to go. Our families don't want us. Can we sleep here? I was like, why aren't you with your families? And the pastor came up to me, took me aside, and said, Erica, can you act a little bit more gay? And I'm like, what do you mean act a little bit more gay? Can you act a little bit more queer? I know you're, I'm running out of time. Just whenever somebody mispronounces you, can you just make sure you say your pronouns more? And then I found out why. These two kids were non-binary. They needed somebody to be more respectful. They needed to show somebody that they were more, an adult could be more bossy, just be more out there, because their parents didn't want them in their home that night. I got a letter from K&K later that week saying I saved them. They just needed somebody to represent. They could see an older adult be more gay, more queer, and more out there. That was our Christmas present. Thank you.
Let's see, what comes after E? I guess it is Keith Gosselin.
Oh, talking about looking gay, right? But that's a different story I'll tell at a future event. Good evening. Look at y'all. Damn. Okay, the first thing I want to acknowledge is that I'm one of the co-hosts with Ann and Linda for all things LGBTQ. And if any of you don't know Linda, she has lots of ideas. This was her idea. All things LGBTQ was her idea. The Stonewall 50 rally on the State House lawn might have been a casual breakfast conversation. If Linda looks at you and says, I have an idea, know that things are going to happen. Besides all things LGBTQ, I've been an advocate liaison leader within the queer community in Vermont since 1985, and I don't need to know that some of you weren't born then. But what I want to share with you tonight is one of those legislative stories. And this is in honor of this coming Thursday being the Transgender Day of Remembrance. And this is a story about my former co-liaison, Brenda Churchill, who passed over in January of this year. And any of you who have ever worked with Brenda know she was formidable. But I thought I had retired from doing advocacy. Because wasn't our work done here in Vermont? Yeah, right. The 2016 election happened. 2017, I'm back at the legislature. I'm there full time. But Brenda is there with me. For Brenda, this was a new endeavor. She was learning her way around. She was starting to build relationships. We started talking back and forth about how we were going to work together. And then the first queer bill got introduced, H333. That's half of 666. I didn't realize that until afterwards, but there we are. This was a bill that was introduced by Representative Celine Colbert of Burlington and Representative Bill Lippert of Heinsberg. And what the bill would do was, in a public accommodation, such as where we are tonight, if it is a single-use bathroom, you're the only one who can go in. You walk in, you lock the door. Is there a reason why that can't be a gender-neutral bathroom? It's you alone, the door's locked. I don't care who's using it, right? So Brenda and I are talking strategy, how we're going to go about this, what needs to be said. And what Brenda would share with you, as she did with other friends, my mantra from the beginning has been, who's not at the table? What is the voice that's not being heard? I shouldn't be the person speaking for you. You should be the person whose face and voice we see, and I should be supporting that and making room for you. So I looked at Brenda and said, this bill is going to impact the transgender community more than anybody else. You should be the face and the voice for this bill. Brenda sort of sat back and then looked at me and said, the bathroom bill? I'm not sure that's the look I was going for. And she would share that story again at the Women's March as well. But it must have been the right face and the right voice, because it passed the House by 123 to 19 vote, and it passed the Senate on a 30-0 unanimous vote. So whatever Brenda's look was, thank you.
Okay, now, you're the K.
I'm the K.
This is Chris Rowley, everybody.
Thank you. This is really great experience. I've never done this before. I teach, so I'm used to standing in front of people. That's why I'm standing, I can't sit. My gender pronouns are he, him. And I always tell people that I actually was born with a birth defect, okay? Because transition is not something I feel like I am. I was born male. I knew I was male. I told my mother I was male when I was 3, okay? I've been male my entire life. The birth defect was simply a fact that I was born with the wrong chromosomes. Other than that, everything was good. So I've always known where I stand and how I feel about my life. And it's been hard because I decided that I was going to make the official change when I was older. I was 50 years old when I decided to do this. Because I said, you know what, I am not going to live the rest of my life pretending to be something I am not, and someone that I am not. It had got to a point where I was extremely uncomfortable all the time. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know how to just be this image of who people expected me to be. Not that any of them had any doubts about who I really was. I didn't try to hide it, really. So anyway, that's one part of where I am and my story that I'm going to tell you about. Having lived on both sides of the aisle, we're going to talk political. I've been on both sides of the aisle. Okay, so, you know, when I was pretending to be a female, I was like, I actually had some fairly high positions in the government here in Vermont. I was the Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Vermont for 8 years, and went to a lot of meetings and interacted with a lot of, I don't know if this is appropriate or not to say, but a lot of good old boys from Vermont who don't quite like the idea of females being in positions of power. It just doesn't quite settle with them. So I would go to meetings and I would come up with ideas. I would put forth, you know, different things for security, and I would be basically ignored. They would just, you know, yeah, right, okay, whatever, move on. So, you know, and I found that all extremely frustrating. So then I decided to start this process. And I had left my job with the state, and I had another job that I currently have now, which is teaching. But I was in some meetings, and I had already transitioned to appear and to be and to actually be who I am. So most of the people where I work now, I don't know who knows and who doesn't know, nor do I care. But I don't think a lot of them knew that I had been another sort of presenter publicly before. So I'm in this meeting, and there were about 6 men and 2 women. And this one woman spoke up and said, I have this idea. And she presented this idea, and it was a really good idea, for what we were talking about. And the person who was leading the meeting was like, okay, yeah, thank you very much. Does anybody else have an idea? And so went around the table a couple of times, and then I raised my hand and I said, I have an idea. And they're like, okay. So I said the idea. It was verbatim practically what the woman had said, okay? And I got, as a male, that is an excellent idea. Tell us some more about that. How would you go about doing that? And I looked at him and I said, I have no idea. It's not my idea. It's her idea. How about you ask her, since she's the one that brought it up already? I would really appreciate if you would do that. So it's always interesting to see how I am treated now versus how I was treated before. Thank you. I'm used to speaking for 50 minutes.
Hey, come up and bare your soul. Feel free to sign up. And the last is going to be Monica. Who else?
You looking at me?
That's you, babe.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
I think I know some of you from a previous persona, but here I am. A story of love. story of redemption, a story of salvation from my early life. It was the summer, late summer, when I was due to return to college for my senior year. And I had made plans at the end of the summer to go to Italy and hang out with my girlfriend, who I wanted to marry. And I had squirreled away some money to make it possible to do that. I had obtained a passport. I had an airline ticket. And then I told my parents what my plans were. And my father said, absolutely not. I forbid it. And I said, I hear you, but I'm going anyway. And he said, you will not. And I said, I will go anyway. And he said, if you attempt to do that, I will call the police. You are under my control. You are not yet 21 years old. And it was devastating. My father, to me, was a god. He was beautiful, he was tall, he was incredibly talented, an artist, a painter, and a sculptor. And I totally admired his skills, which I certainly didn't have and don't have. So, and I did not go to Italy. I felt trapped. Didn't seem possible. He had gone through my desk in my room while I was at work, confiscated my passport, and cashed in the ticket. So I was helpless. So I put on a good face and went back to school. And that was in September. My birthday was in October. And right after my 21st birthday, I dropped out and I sent a short note to my parents and told them what I had done, and that if you want to know if I'm dead or alive, here's the name of a friend, and you can contact him, and he'll tell you whatever he knows. Shortly after, I met a woman in a bar, and I ended up moving in with her. Found out very quickly that she was an addict. She was a nurse, and she stole narcotics from the hospital where she worked. And she gave me my first injection of opioids. And it was amazing. It was everything I had ever wanted. Peace, comfort, love. So it wasn't long before I started copping drugs on the street. And that went on for the next 3 years. At which point, I had grown very sickly and weak and had no money, no assets of any kind. And someone I knew told me about the methadone program and suggested that I check it out. It was brand new at that time, many decades ago. So I went, and I was told at the interview that I wasn't eligible because they were only taking people who had been junkies for 7 years. And I had only been using for a little more than 3 years. So I got ready to leave, I was disappointed. And somebody said to me, the director wants to see you. So I went in and saw him. He was a big black man sitting behind the desk. He told me he had been a chief petty officer in the Navy. And I told him that I had ulcers all over my arms from using dirty needles, infected, bleeding sores. Roll up your sleeves. I did. And I thought I saw a tear in his eye. And he said to me, white boy, you ain't gonna make it in the street. You're gonna die. So long story short, they took me on the program after all. And that was, the next step was they put me in hospital. I don't know if I was in the hospital for 3 weeks or 3 months. I don't remember anything about it, except the day I was discharged. And I was ready to leave, to go home. And a nurse came in and gave me a huge brown bottle. I said, this is your methadone. And I knew that was wrong. I knew I wasn't supposed to have that bottle. It was probably worth $1,000 on the street in those days. So my appointment at the clinic was the following Monday. I went in and asked to see the director, and I said, his name was Sterling. Sterling, this ain't gonna work. I know I'm gonna use drugs again. He said, no, you won't. I said, what are you gonna do about it? I won't wait you. What are you gonna do about it? If you don't show up for your appointments, I'll come to your apartment and get you. I said, no, you won't. I'm gonna lock the door. He said, I'll break it down. And I looked at him and I said, you mean it? Yes. So I took the bottle out of my backpack and put it on his desk. You ever see a black man turn white? How did you get that? I told him. And he called in the clinic nurse, gave it to her, told her to lock it up where they keep all the drugs. And I got on the program. And I haven't used narcotics since. So that was decades ago. And now I'm here with you.
Okay. So, I guess we're about to wrap it up. And I guess if anybody wants more drinks, to hang out for a little bit.
Many of us are going to the Ladder Grill for dinner afterwards. You're all welcome to join us.
Sign up, okay?
Thank you for doing this.
Don't make me chase you down.
She
Do you have
will.
a date for January?
No, not yet. I need to talk about that and we'll figure it out, but I will certainly put it out there for everybody. And we do have it on Facebook for this month. And so you can look up, you can email me at the email address that's on the flyer if you want to read or if you want to, do something else or whatever. Just let me know. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate it.